In front of the biggest elimination final crowd in history, the Wizard dazzled the MCG while the Giants succumbed to one of the all-time final performances from Isaac Heaney. The Lions kick-started their grand final run with a 10-goal-to-none pounce, where the Blues decided to rock up to the Gabba an hour after the opening bounce. The pitchforks are out for the Power with straight sets, a disaster for Kenny, and what about that goal from Jezza? Then again, it was just one of many. To dissect the first week of finals and look towards semi-final weekend, this is Triple M Footy's Midweek Rub with the St Kilda Hall of Fame superstar Lee Montagna.
Hello, Rabs here. Nice to be here again. Beautiful spring day outside. Finals is in the air. It was lucky we had the Sydney Giants game to save what otherwise was a pretty average weekend, but there are still storylines everywhere, so looking forward to chatting about it soon.
Collingwood and Carlton superstar Daisy Thomas.
Good afternoon, team. Great to be back. Well said, Joey.
Hello, Dale.
It's also 10:46 in the morning.
Again,
mate.
as I said, good afternoon. I wasn't sure how we were time coding this, Damo, but it's 10:46, so good morning, fellas.
And to be fair, he's been up since
Yes.
4:30 a.m, so it does feel like the afternoon for him.
Part-timers getting up early. And the superstar of footy media, Damien Barrett.
It may be finally getting to you, Dave.
Well, you know what's getting to me? Your bloody attitude towards me.
Oh, really? What have I done now?
All right, Channel 7 don't have any personality. It's good that they got Kane for some personality.
That's...
What do you think I bring?
said that
no
tongue
sizzle?
in cheek. Someone else has already dirtied up over that, and I don't want to go down that
tongue-in-cheek.
path again.
You did, Damo. You say there's the Triple M JB and the Channel 7 JB. Do you feel the same with Daisy? There's like a Triple M Daisy and then a Channel 7 Dale Thomas?
I think Daisy's towing the line better than most
Really?
do, actually, to actually give you your views. I wasn't referring to you, but you're right. You're right. Have you ever heard JB say "piss off" on Channel 7
way
like he
funnier
did
on
after
Triple M.
the Jez Cameron goal last week?
Way
So-
more entertaining.
Yeah.
Okay, as long as that wasn't directed at me, because it felt like it was.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I think someone else took it that way.
You can't say
Oh, I
somebody
can't
else.
be bothered going again with the
Oh,
other bloke.
I have
yeah.
talked about this before.
Oh, he's done it 4 times this
Oh.
week.
That's the beauty of
I'll
having
go
one
again if you
gag.
want me to. Yeah, now I want to get to you too because you played 100 games for Carlton Footy Club.
I did.
Yep, star of the club.
That's
Broadcast,
a stretch.
broadcast the game
Yep.
on Saturday, the disaster against the
It was a tough
Brisbane
one.
Lions.
No conflict of interest?
Did you decide to rub it in the noses of the people who were dealing with it at Carlton Footy Club, as in officials of the club, as they were leaving the Gabba after the game had finished, circa, 10 o'clock Saturday night?
Probably closer to 11.
11 o'clock. Did you shout out to them, "Hey, boys, the game starts at 7:20"?
I didn't shout. Let's get a few of these facts right. I was leaving the ground, walking across, and Len Villani, team manager, does a great job at the Blues. He was walking the other way, not sure why he was still there. However, he was entered, and we walked past, and Slasher, his nickname, "Hey, mate, yeah, Slasher, good to see you." Could you tell the boys it started at 7:20? It's a bit tongue-in-cheek, Joey.
Yeah, of course. Team manager's
Like my
fault, 'cause
line
he's
about Channel 7
responsible.
and no personality. Tongue-in-cheek.
Tongue-in-cheek, yeah, absolutely. So it was received well. He had a chuckle. It wasn't meant to be derogatory in any way. It was just a bit of lightheartedness because at 8:20, the game was done.
It was. Did you
Which
feel
was-
for the Carlton fans that made the effort to fly up?
No, look, it was a disappointing outcome because honestly, and there's no other way to look at it, it's not being harsh or overly critical of the fact that they didn't show up because the effort in that first quarter was shocking.
Yeah. Were the
And
Blues
that's-
brothers there? Were there the Blues brothers and
the
Blues
Blues
sisters? Were they
brothers
there?
and sisters, I think they were there, which was good.
Why are you asking these questions with a smile on your
No,
face? Look at you. How much delight have you got out of it?
Where were the Saints?
They're in Bali or somewhere.
We're playing for the Bali Geckos.
But your flight to Brisbane was a bit of an issue
look,
as
it's-
well
it's
because you
been
are
a-
the star of Channel 7
Well,
at
I'm
the
not.
moment.
Damon doesn't even
So
know
Channel
I'm
7
there.
business, they would fly you business, Channel 7.
Well, I got on the first flight to Adelaide, and JB was in business, which was nice. 27D a bit further down, but that's all right. I had to do the game, of course. Pay your dues, earn your stripes. I know all that stuff. Did the game, finished up about midnight after we got back to the hotel, said our goodbyes. Up at 4 for radio because of the time difference, killed me. So I thought I'd treat myself. I'll ring up, I'll call Qantas, I'll try and get an upgrade. Use the points, no dramas. Get some shut-eye on the way to Brisbane, catch up. We don't have your name in the system. I was like, this is an issue. And I kept saying, no, this is my reference number. And the lady at the other end kept saying, what is your name? And I said, Dale Thomas. This is she goes, no, what is the name of the person flying? And I was starting to do my stats. I was like, Dale Thomas, like, if you're struggling, sweets, look it up in YouTube. You get a pretty good idea.
Don't
And
you
then
know who
kept
I am?
going. And I said, well, bugger this, what's going on? Hung up on her. text the Channel 7 team. Unfortunately, that previous email I got was Ms. Daisy Thomas. So they flippantly just sent one. All good. There was another reference number that I wasn't across. Anyway, good news. I got the upgrade. I got to sit in 28D on an Alliance flight next to the shitters.
And got called Miss Daisy the whole flight. Very good. Very good.
Anyway.
Are you up at Sydney this weekend, or what is Channel 7's movements?
Saturday night, yes, for the big clash between the Giants and Port.
The Lions. But anyway,
that was a joke. That was a joke. Calm down.
On those games a little bit later on, plus fair income or Fugazi. But Damo, it's time for your news next, and the exodus at the Footscray has begun. Your predictions for the semi-finals coming up, plus fair income or Fugazi on Triple M Footy's midweek rub. Joey, Daisy and this man, Damo. It is time for your news. Let's start with the Bulldogs. The exodus has begun.
It has, and it's been the best part of 18 months in the works to have Bailey Smith this week formally, officially tell the Bulldogs he wants out. It was broached this time last year in the player exchange period. He had the contract still to go for 2024, so he just parked the whole issue. Unfortunately for everyone, he then damaged badly an ACL in December, missed the entire year, but now wants out. That club will be Geelong, his club of choice, and given they've been working on this for 18 months, when a good club like Geelong gets wind of a player's disgruntlement at his own club, they don't then miss when they get the chance to secure that deal. So that will go down. We've learnt in the past 24 hours that Jack Macrae too will want to seek an exit from the Bulldogs. He's got a different situation. He is still contracted. And it just follows the path taken by Josh Dunkley, initially at the end of 2020 when he was contracted for the next season. But then when he was out of contract at the end of 2021, he too chose to leave the Dogs to go to the Brisbane Lions. So three big names, three important players, and issues at the Dogs in that space, Days.
The Bailey Smith one, how did Geelong continue to do it? They are the model of consistency with making themselves a destination club, but also not stuffing up the trades and making sure they are ready to go in whatever order it is. The Bulldogs will get a decent compensation.
Well, he's out of contract, and the first pick that the Cats, he's not a free agent either, so there's no compensation. We need to be an old-fashioned transaction.
Restricted free agent, the Dogs can match it?
No, he's not a free agent. No, he's just out of contract.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so they'll need to transact on a draft pick and maybe player. But, Joey, you know the way this works better than anyone in this conversation. They will have, at best, a last four pick in that first round if they lose a prelim final. And if they win a prelim final, that pick is going to be pushed almost into the 20s and maybe even mid-20s with the academy kids and the father-sons that will come in.
Yeah, you'd think then Geelong would have to add something else on top of it. I think pick 18, 20 is probably not enough for someone of Bailey Smith's talent and age, so maybe something else. But as you said, they'll sort it out, good clubs. I love the way Geelong go about it, Daisy, because I'm a fan of this. They are prepared to give up their first-round picks for young players that you've got evidence of that are high-end talent.
Yep.
That are going to be a good player. So Tanner Bruin, they gave up pick 18. You go, well, at least we know what we're going to get rather than speculating on a draft pick that you don't know. They did it with Ollie Henry, and now they're going to do it with Bailey Smith. So I like the idea of taking a 21, 22-year-old who you might get 3 or 4 years less footy out of, but you're getting a known product. You're drafting someone that you know can play and what you want with them. So I like the way the Cats are going about it. And imagine Bailey Smith and Max Holmes in the midfield for the next 10 years at Geelong. Seriously, with Tanner Bruin in there as well, there's no reason why they won't continue to be a contender for the next 3 or 4 years.
And arguably, what you lose at the back end, you don't have to worry about at the front end.
Yeah.
So if you get an 18-year-old kid, it takes at least 3 years to train them up, everything. Bailey Smith comes in ready to go, and he would be a point of difference because that Cats midfield lacks speed and ability to cover the ground. Max Holmes, we've seen, has gone in there and been brilliant. I think it's a great get.
So the talk will be they'll give up their first round pick, which could be, as we said, in the 20s.
A player?
And a future second,
Okay.
maybe. And a future second, depending on where they finish on the ladder again, it could be pushed right back, or it could be a future first, which again
and
will
you
push
swap
back.
picks or something.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
it's future seconds, Daisy. Future seconds. They're the ones you trade away.
Kick it down the track. Port, Zach Butters, Ken Hinkley, a lot of focus on this football club and those two individuals going into Friday night's game against Hawthorn. The whole subbing out of Zach Butters, others had opinions on that, and that's taken a life of its own. But ultimately, this is not being dramatic anymore, guys. This could well be Ken Hinkley's last game if it does indeed result in another loss. He's lost his past 4 finals. It was a straight sets exit last year. It was a dreadful loss in week 1 against Geelong this year. It's come to time for Ken Hinkley to work out whether he's going to be in 2025 or in the system or not.
It's a big weekend. It's all about kicking the can down the road. They've been able to do that with Ken Hinkley as a coach because he's been a very good coach. But ultimately, you're trying to win a premiership, and if he can't get over the line this week, my feel is I agree, it'll probably be the end. The question, it's probably more if they do win this weekend, Daisy, and get to a prelim and then lose. Is that enough to keep Ken Hinkley again next year? Is it not enough? I mean, if they make a grand final, you'd probably then say, yes, he deserves another year. It's a really, really sort of tricky predicament that the Port Adelaide Football Club are in to know exactly what to make of the coaching situation.
I still think they can lose this weekend and it not be such an issue. It was how they lost last weekend that was the issue and becomes the talking point. If you come, the Hawthorn Footy Club and finals are hard to win, we've seen that. But the way in which you lose becomes the concern. Yeah. And for me, 20 points down at halftime, hit the front in that second quarter to then get absolutely blown away. That is a slight concern, but also I believe they can respond, and I think they will. I think they're still a good enough side to come out this weekend, and I'm going to tip them to be winning this weekend on the fact that they do respond. A lot of sides have had a big and a really bad loss at some point throughout the year. Then now they've had two. Obviously, the Brisbane Lions lost in round 15, this one this week. We've seen it with Sydney, 112-point flogging to Port Adelaide, who were now the favourites for the premiership, that being Sydney. You never know.
And we've seen it in the past. 11 finalists, qualifying finals, have lost by 50 points or more. Every single one of them have come back to win the next week. That's an incredible stat.
It is.
It does feel different this time around, though, because of the how poor Port Adelaide were and how well Hawthorn are going. We'll touch on the game later. But I suppose if 11 teams have lost by 50 plus, they're obviously poor in those games, and then they've been able to find a way to bounce back.
If he does win and make it through to a prelim, does it change? Does it actually change?
I've always felt he had to get to a prelim at the very, very least. And then, Days, I feel it will then come down to the performance on that moment itself, because if he was to get there and fail again, it means he's never made a grand final, and he's already the longest 12 years. Yeah. And again, I'm not here to downplay his record as a coach, but he's now facing a situation where he's lost his past 4 finals. He's lost 5 of his past 6. And if you just do the numbers on what lies ahead, even in your conversation, it's still a damning number on a finals win-loss perspective. So I think it has to be grand final, to your point, and Joey, and always have felt that even before the season started.
Yeah. Damo, what about a team who's not playing finals in the Ds? They've announced an external review at board level and at playing level.
Yeah, we're just understanding now, aren't we, what type of undertakings were given to Christian Petrarca to abruptly end his standoff with the club 2 weekends ago. And we saw that Kate Roffey almost immediately stood down. And again, I'll let Kate, if she chooses to ever want to explain why she did that, if it was indeed linked to the Christian Petrarca thing. I believe it was. We've now see this week that there's a review going on and there is an outside component to it. There's still a heavily loaded internal element to that review, which I think is an issue, because I think Gary Pert should be also considering or being considered by others around him to be moved on alongside Kate Roffey, but that's the way it stands at the moment.
Yeah, normally when there's an external review of some sorts, normally there is change. They don't do a review and then say all's kosher here. So you probably do think there will be someone else that'll be a fall guy from the review. But I think it's okay. I think they need to freshen up a little bit at Football Club. They just need to get some fresh voices in, some fresh ideas. I think the way that it's been sort of the last couple of years at that club, it won't necessarily be a bad thing.
And sometimes the old saying, you can't see the forest from the trees. When you're internal and we're going all right, we could have won this game, we could have won that game, and then that changes the whole season. Until you actually bring a new set of eyes to it, a new lens, and obviously they've gone to get some really good people in that space, the All Blacks culture and leadership, also Jeff Walsh, who has done this before with a really good impact. I think that's a really healthy thing for a football club to do, and you almost do it on the run as well. Each side, when they lose each year, they figure out what went well, what didn't. So I like the fact they've gone external. The board one is interesting that still is internal. Yeah. Will there be any lens of the All Blacks and Jeff Walsh having a look over that?
Yes. I mean, you don't bring the All Blacks guy in unless you want to give him carte blanche on what he wants to say about the club. Just on that space too, Stephen Smith is a well-known person to the football and sports industry. He is a former chair of the MCC Trust. He will be taking some time off just from a very, very involved job in recent times. I still think he's going to be a chairman of the Melbourne Footy Club or president of the Melbourne Footy Club. Not necessarily, or not immediately, that's all. I think it'll be within 12 months, he will still be that person. And then Last one, guys. I reckon Mabior Chol's leapfrog of Nick Watson is getting lost in the reflection of these amazing celebrations of Hawk. I reckon that's as good as I've seen, and I reckon it's up there and better than the paparazzi shot of CJ of Guinea.
Not that hard, is it, for a 6'7" bloke to jump over a 5'4" bloke? But yeah, I did see that. I think it was quite
He
funny.
said post-match that they trained for it on Thursday before the game. That's the best bit I liked about it. So it's right up there, isn't it, Dave?
Hawkball is just, you have to watch it. It is compelling viewing, sitting down, and even just any goal. Every time one player kicks a goal, you're like, right, get the camera back on them. What are they doing?
Well, jumping over each other.
Yeah, that's it.
I'm just worried I might be losing my son, Damo, because we played footy in the backyard. And he goes,
no.
Dad, I'm the Wizard Watson today. I went, no.
really?
Next minute, he might be a Hawk supporter. Can't blame him.
You need to stand firm, Joey.
Yeah, I know.
A lot of sizzle coming out of the Saints that are winning back over.
Not quite enough.
Although I've forced my two boys who are now 2018 to Barrack North, and that has demoralised them. So maybe let him go.
That's right. I don't want to punish the poor kid. We'll see.
Just show Noah some YouTube videos of Tip Rat Milne. That will get him on board at the Saints. And the Hawks have a huge game on Friday night against the Power. We'll get your predictions soon. This is Triple M Footy's Midweek Rub. I'm going to start with you, Joey Montagna. Carlton lost to Brisbane on Thursday night at the selection table.
I saw that because I saw that question. I thought, I hope that's not for me. That's a hard one. Did they lose it because of selection?
Yes.
I think it's pretty easy.
Yeah.
Chincotta to Dane Zorko.
That would have changed
It is
it.
probably fair dinkum, but there's more. You can't let the players off and say it was because of selection. They also mentally didn't come to play, as Daisy told the team manager. So it is fair dinkum, but the players have got to take more responsibility for their performance.
Billy Brownless doesn't say a lot of insightful things. He said
makes
yesterday,
comments, not special
you
comments.
can't win the game at selection, but you can lose it.
That's true. Yes.
I'm not sure who he stole it off, but it was good.
That's one of David King's.
I reckon that's one of
Is it?
King's.
I reckon that's one of King's
Is that
sayings.
what's on the laptop? He's got a bunch of sayings.
Yeah, that's one of them.
Okay, well, then I'll ask you this.
Okay.
Carlton lost the elimination final with their selection of the sub.
That's all combined. Yeah, that's fair dinkum too. Yeah, that's a strange one. Should have played him at the start.
Considering the impact he had when he
That's Tom
came on.
DeConing, by the way.
Tom DeConing, that's right. Yeah, good one.
Damo, the Bulldogs season has to be considered a failure.
That's fair dinkum. Yeah, you can't go from being where they were on the ladder and where they were being considered to be and feeling that they were a top 4 team. I know they didn't finish top 4, but that's what they felt and viewed themselves as. And then to be blown away in the first final and then have 2 players of note, Bailey Smith, Jack McRae, want to leave. So, yeah, fair dinkum.
Daisy, Sam Doherty was a great story nonetheless.
Yeah, that's fair dinkum. That was a real shining light on a pretty dirty night for the Blues. The fact that he got through, because I was really nervous. I thought it was a shot at the stumps that may not have been the right play, but he got through, he kicked a goal, and the confidence that's going to give him, fantastic to see him back out there because he's had a bloody tough run, so it's good that the universe has been kind to him.
Damo, Patrick Dangerfield is still the hardest man at the footy.
Absolutely fair dinkum. Some of those acts he had in the second quarter, more so than the first, third and fourth quarters against Port Adelaide the other night, I thought were just extraordinary and all-time great Paddy Dangerfield sort of stuff. He just created 2 goals just through being a bull with the ball in hand, and they came from nowhere just because he barged through so many contests. So fair dinkum.
I was going to ask you this, Joey, but Daisy's probably more suited. Goal and mark of the year should be named after finals days.
Yeah, 100%. It's mark of the year, not mark of the partial year. And again, I don't think anybody would have an issue with that mark of Isaac Heaney being mark of the year. That was incredible.
Maybe Jamie Elliott might.
Yeah, or Bobby Hill.
Hill.
But again, it should be in the conversation for how good the mark was, and also the goal of Jeremy Cameron. It defies all sorts of physics and logic. And when you actually talk to him about it, him talking about how he practices end over end as opposed to, if you're from a tight angle, left foot out with revs going left to right, it was 100% deliberate and executed perfectly.
Joey, Tom Hawkins has played his last game of AFL football.
Well, that's Fugazi because he still could play if there's some significant injuries and all of a sudden they need him. I don't think he will play. I don't think they're going to change a winning formula. Shannon Neal is holding his own. The forward line's humming. So, no, he's not getting back in the side. But, of course, you never say never. Who knows what could happen in the prelim? So he's got to stay fit, stay mentally ready, and you never know.
But not being selected.
No, he won't be selected
under any
unless
circumstance.
there's some dramatic injuries to Shannon Neal and maybe one other, Jeremy Cameron example. Touch wood, that doesn't happen, but that's the only way I see him playing.
Damo, Port Adelaide's... I'll start again. That was Port Adelaide's worst loss under Ken Hinkley.
I'll say Fugazi because I still go back to the 2021 preliminary final where Bailey Smith and the Dogs got him hard. And that was coming off the previous year's prelim final against Richmond where they did everything but beat Dusty Martin. So I feel that was the real jolting one. This one, I hate to say it, it wasn't the greatest shock as it started to unfold. So it's Fugazi on that one, Rabsy.
Daisy, last week showed good small forwards are the most important assets in the game.
Ooh, are they the most? I'm going to say Fugazi. I think you can mount a case for an unbelievable defender, on-baller, ruckman, and also forward. But they show that they are, and having multiple threats at goal is bloody hard to close down because that Hawthorn forward line, obviously Geelong as well, Stengel getting busy. They're just a different avenue to goal. So when the big boys fail and it gets to ground, they can light you up.
Joey, Hawthorn's game is built perfectly for finals.
Fair dinkum. I'm just trying to work out how their game's built.
Have they been tested enough?
Well, it's an interesting question. Is their game built perfectly for finals? Their game is excellent the way they're playing. So they hold. What's the right way of talking about this one? How they defend well, they attack well, and their midfield are tough. So I suppose you have to say yes, it is built for finals. I love their midfield. I think that they are no frills, low possession, high effectiveness. That's where it starts for me with the midfielders. They've got interceptors down back, and we've spoken about the small forwards. So they're well-rounded, and they tick every box. So I suppose that means it's built for finals.
I'm going to stick with you. We spoke about Isaac Heaney's mark. Brendan Goddard will be smashing bowls of pretzels off the table, seeing Isaac Heaney's mark being called the greatest in finals history.
BJ tells a story. If we had won that granny days, he reckons there would have been a statue of that mark out the front of Moorabbin. Unfortunately, it didn't go that way.
Wasn't that big days?
Brendan, please.
There was a pretty good mark to put St Kilda in front.
In terms of the context, it was an important mark. In terms of one of the great marks,
Heaney's was better. Yeah. Heaney's was better.
You still get your hair standing up in your arm and you think about it?
I've said that story. It's the only time I reckon on a footy field I've actually got like tingles when something's happening in a game, watching that mark and thinking, holy shit, we're in front with 5 minutes to go. And then Dawsey didn't make it last too long.
Damien Barrett, if Caleb Daniel and Jason Johannesson also request trades, Sam Draper is owed an apology.
You know what he wants there. He also knows the Brownlow's coming up.
I'm going to say Fugazi because didn't he have Bevo getting the boot as well, I think, as part of it? Yeah, look, what he said at the start of the year, a lot of it has proven to have been true, but I think he took a few stabs in the dark and maybe... flew a few kites and some are starting to land. So, yeah, well done, Sam.
Daisy, Jack Ginnivan's Instagram comment about seeing Sydney in prelim week was disrespectful to Port Adelaide.
No, not one bit. That is just everything that club is doing at the minute. Jack, if we haven't quite cottoned on yet, he doesn't really give a shit about much. If you go to the races the night before a grand final, if you go to the biggest footy pub in Victoria the day before a game to have dinner and then go home, you've got to know what you're doing to some extent. Jack doesn't care. He's allowed to not care. I don't think it's disrespectful. I don't think it's going to make Port try any harder. It might make his direct opponent or somebody rub his head in the dirt at some point. But the only thing it does is add some pressure to how Jack performs. And you've got to walk the walk after you talk the talk, however you say that. That's what he needs to do.
You know what'll happen? I guarantee he'll get a free kick out of it. Someone at Port Adelaide will do something and then give away a free kick, and he'll take a free kick and he'll get up with a smile on his face and he'll probably slot a goal because of that comment.
Damo, Jason McCartney was just doing what every opposition official has dreamed of in shirt fronting Tom Patley.
That's fair dinkum too. Yeah. It was right that the AFL got him with a 20 grand fine. The second time he's copped on his behalf of his club a 20 grand fine, by the way, in the past 4 years. But yeah, I think Papley does it deliberately and almost just does it to try and keep in habit with trying to get up the noses and eyes and everything else of opponents and officials.
Going to finish with you, Joe. And so last time we mentioned Daisy and this word, but Daisy's Sharpie comments about the Bulldogs were ultimately vindicated.
He was spot on. He knew they could not get to a prelim. He knew they weren't good enough. He was ahead of his time. He had to wear a few punches, but in the end, he comes out victorious.
You happy with that?
The Oracle.
I apologise to the Bulldogs because it wasn't. They used my clip in that pump up video and it didn't work.
Didn't work.
So I take responsibility. Next year I'll go harder, so it fires them up a bit more.
Daisy Thomas is the Oracle.
Going to get your semi-finals predictions coming up next. Of course, two huge finals, Hawthorn versus Port Adelaide and the Giants versus the Lions. This is Triple M Footy's Midweek Rub. Couple of huge finals this weekend on Triple M. The Friday Huddle is there. The Saturday Rub is there as well. And if you're in Melbourne, you're going to hear the Rugby League because the Storm take on Cronulla in a qualifying final as well. But let's chat the two semi-finals. Kicking off Friday night, Port Adelaide versus Hawthorn, Joey.
Well, it's going to be Ken Hinkley's one of his greatest challenges to try and get this team up to the arousal levels they need to be to play like they did for the previous 10 weeks before the weekend. So hopefully all week it's been more mental preparation than it is anything structural or physical with this group, because that's their biggest challenge. It's mentally in finals at home too, which I reckon the pressure of playing at home in front of probably fans they know are probably sort of sitting there judging them and judging the coach and making these decisions. So if Ken Hinkley can get them to the arousal levels to play like they did, it'll be one of the great performances. And I'm like you, Daisy. I expect them to play like that. Now, whether that's good enough to beat a rampaging Hawks who are flying, ticking every box, I'm going to tip Hawthorn for that reason. But I'm just hoping Port Adelaide show up.
If you can't get yourself up as a player, though, like the coach can do so much, but as a player, it falls back on you ultimately to bring your maximum effort for a final. Every week, it is on you to get yourself up. Every now and then, you'll be challenged by a coach because they know what they're doing.
So what happened? Tell the people listening, why didn't Carlton and Port Adelaide show up in a final when they should be at their absolutely arousing best?
Well, this is the point, is that the fact that the players individually haven't, for whatever reason, worrying about result, worrying about what might happen, a little bit of, hey, we're, for Carlton's sake, the underdogs have been pretty good all weekend. Maybe it just happens. There is something that has gone wrong, but I don't think that's on the coach to make sure that happens. It's on the coach to get it going throughout the game and find a way to respond. I think Port Adelaide will be fine. They will have backs to the walls. It'll be the internal us against the world, and it has to be because that is purely the situation. It's for the coach, it's for themselves, it's for their fans, and they need to find a way to win.
And we'll get your thoughts on this game, but boys, we want to get a match winner from both of these sides as well while Damo's giving us his thoughts.
Yeah, I'm a bit with Days on this one. As this game is coming closer to us, I'm leaning toward Port Adelaide. I know the easy answer is a Hawthorn win, and they are, as Joey says, on a rampage at the moment. But I just like what they've done up until last week, Port, the way they fought through some adversity. I reckon they've got one more shot to fire.
I'll give you my match winner from both sides. Ollie Wines, I think, for Port Adelaide, because we know Rosie has X Factor, has something different. Same with Butters if he gets up. Ollie Wines goes in to plough the field. He's somebody for Port who has had a really good couple of weeks and has to do it again.
For me, it's Zach Butters. I think they turned to their superstar. He came off injured, sore, questioned about his toughness, and there was a quote, he needs to tough up this week. He's the toughest player in the competition.
Which is complete bullshit.
No, I agree, absolutely. He's the toughest player
That's your new Channel 7 teammate.
Yeah, and you know what? If he was sitting direct to me at any stage in front of microphone or in front of beer at pub, I would tell him that it was the dumbest thing I've heard for a long while.
So I reckon he's going to be the one, Dave. He's going to have a point of bruise. He's going to run around and he's going to go nuts. And if they are to win, I think it's off him.
And Hawthorn?
I've got whoever replaces Sam Frost. Frostball is become a real Nathan Murphy to a Darcy Moore. Sicily does whatever he wants on the fact of Frostball defending a player and a starting point. Whoever comes in is the most important player.
The most unlikely of heroes for Hawks, it's going to be Lord Meek, because Port Adelaide, when they dominate games, they dominate clearance and played in their forward half. If Lord Meek can get his hands on the footy and give first use to Newcomb and Warple and those guys, then it makes it awfully hard for Port.
Has Bill calling him Lord Meek accidentally stuck?
Yeah, they gave him a lordship.
Yeah, they did.
They did.
What about the next game on Saturday night up at NG Stadium, Damo? It's the Giants versus the Lions. This is a huge game.
Yeah, it is. And I like the Lions in this. If I take out, I know you can't take out, but if you were to remove rounds 22 and 23, when they lost matches that they were good in, but lost. I raised those games because that meant they didn't get the double chance. They dealt with that last week by beating Carlton very easily. They now get themselves back into a last sixth scenario, and I reckon their game stands up against everyone, including an away final against the might of the Giants.
There's a couple of ways, I think, to look at this, whether or not Brisbane had the easier run than GWS, so they'll be fresher, they'll come out with that sort of enthusiasm, that tenacity to start, or is it that Brisbane haven't been put under finals like heat? Because it is a completely different game, as we saw on the weekend. The GWS Giants Sydney game was the one. That was the one that was sort of grand final level, prelim final level. So the Giants being hardened for that, and Brisbane maybe thinking, well, we haven't been challenged. look, you can look at it either way. I'm going to take the Giants on trust. I just think that they've been the better side throughout the year.
Has the fact they lost Joey outshone how good the Giants were last week?
I don't think it should be outshone. I think everyone knows how well they played. And when you look at their style of footy, that they play in the highest or the top 4 highest pressure and turnover games. Brisbane play in the 4th lowest pressure and turnover games. That's how they play throughout the year, and that was both finals went that way. So which preparation's better? I'd take the Giants' preparation. If they play like they did last week, they'll beat Brisbane.
Toby Green for me kicked 0 goals, 2 on the weekend. One of them he would kick 9.8 times out of 10. I think he's the one that obviously holds the keys. He needs to hit the scoreboard. He's gone goalless in every one of his finals campaigns, but has also kicked multiple goals. In one of the games, So at one point he hasn't scored, but he's also kicked multiple goals on the back of those games. I think he does it again.
Yeah, for me, it's Brent Daniels. I think he's a super little player. Got well beaten by Harry Cunningham. He doesn't have that sort of matchup against Brisbane. It's Starcevic will go to Toby Green. He's probably going to get like a Zorko or Wilmot and might be able to get off the chain, Brent Daniels, and be an important player that we know he is.
Who does Bedford get out of
Bedford will go to Lachie Neale, 100%. You got to stop.
No doubt.
You cannot stop. You cannot let Lachie Neale run around and get 10 clearances and 30-odd touches. Try and limit his influence.
He sure had a theory that Cornelio would go to half forward and tag Zorko and then go through Neale in the midfield.
Good one. Not a bad idea because Cornelio's not getting the job done with his shoulder, so he might need to play a bit more of a defensive role.
For the Lions, Joe Danaher. Again, Sam Taylor, one of the best defenders in the competition. Joe Danaher needs to find a way to have a big night.
Cam Rayner would love to see step up in a final. He's had a great season, but he needs to have a big, big final again.
And finally, before the games kick off this weekend, Damo, who's got the most to lose here?
Port Adelaide.
Yeah.
From finishing second on the ladder with the Ken Hinkley status at play. I mean, Hawthorn has got nothing to lose. Hawthorn's already won big time on the season. And, I mean, look, Giants have got something to lose too because they lost the didn't win a grand final when they made it, and coming off prelim, and the Giants, Brisbane lost the grand final last year, but it's still Port Adelaide in my eyes.
I agree. 2 massive finals. You can hear them all on Triple M and the Listener app. It made sense of that. That was fine, Damo. You can catch all the
Giants
finals
in the head.
live on the Triple M and the Listener app, starting with the Friday huddle ahead of Port Adelaide and Hawthorn semi-final with Mark Howard, Luke Darcy, Jason Dunstall, Nathan Brown, and the Midweek Rubs. Very own Dan.
What time did you guys get up? Oh, boy.